Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining the role of workforce management automation amid the new retail environment with Andreas Sjölund, CRO of Quinyx. As a reminder, if you have any questions throughout the conversation, to please submit them using the Q&A button on the bottom of your screen. Here's your host, Winnick, Senior Analyst at Coresight Research.
Okay, great. Well, Mara, thank you for bringing us all together today to discuss workforce management and automation in this new retail environment. I'm honored to have Andreas Sjölund joining us from Quinyx. He's the Chief Revenue Officer and has decades of experience working with SaaS workforce management companies across the industry. Andreas has played a major role over the past decade in the expansion and success of Quinyx's global business and is focused really on creating a happy and efficient workforce. Andreas is also passionate about helping companies work smarter and more efficiently while keeping things more simple. So we have a very exciting topic today, and we feel it's very relevant. As you know, COVID has really changed the rules of retailing, and with stores reopening, employees have become a quintessential part to a retailer's success. We're seeing employees, take on new roles from helping with fulfillment for BOPIS and curbside to doing different tasks in the store that, pre-COVID, wasn't part of their normal routine. So the importance of workforce management, being able to automate some of those experiences for employees can not only help improve the efficiency of the employees, but also translate to a better customer experience. So, today we're really going to discuss what trends we're seeing in US retail workforce management, as well as best practices for workforce automation that could lead to success in this new retail environment. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to Andreas to go through some of the slides that he's prepared for today that discusses some of these trends that can help retailers prepare for this new retail normal as stores begin to reopen. So Andreas, through Quinyx's platform, you have a unique view on how the market and workforce is changing from a workforce perspective. Can you talk to us a little bit about what you're seeing today and what you were seeing pre-COVID?
Absolutely. So thanks so much, Stephen. Pleasure to be online here and speaking to you today, and the retail audience here as well. So yeah, we see a very changing market, of course, now with COVID-19 that is going on, and even before that, some changes that were happening. And one thing is of course the changing in buying behaviors, that is changing all over the world. You see, retail stores, some chains have some challenges, and some retail chains are going really well. And we believe that, the physical stores aren't going anywhere, like Jeff Bezos also say, but e-commerce is going to be a part of everything. And that also is putting pressure on retailers to change quickly and to see the world in a new way, and also invest in new ways of working. We also see that health and well-being is being more important than ever, which also, retailers need to think about, of course, going forward for both customers and their employees. And there's also new ways of shopping and new regulations in place. So this, of course, is a big challenge for everyone, and specifically retailers. We also see that the workforce is changing. We saw this even before COVID happened, but it was accelerated through COVID with a change where actually 25% of the global workers today prefer a flexible schedule above pay raise. So before, pay was, 5-10 years ago, that was the main thing for pretty much all the employees. But we've seen in the last couple of years that for a worker, it's more important to have a flexible schedule. And we see that 31% actually can leave their job because they don't have a flexible schedule enough. And also 47% worry also that switching shifts to become more flexible and that actually can get them fired. So there's definitely some changes in the workforce environment as well. And then what we also see is existing solutions have not kept up. So the technology is going rapidly forward with, web-based solutions, omni-channel, e-commerce, but also from an employee point of view, where the new workers that come out in the retail space, for example, they're used to Snapchat, Facebook, maybe not so much Facebook even anymore, but Instagram and things like that. So, but when they come to the working place, it's like going back in time. So it's old technology, it's lacking functionality and flexibility, and it's really clunky and not user-friendly solutions out there. And that's also a challenge that we see that a lot of retailers have, and that is important to think about going forward.
And Andreas, just thinking about a lot of the shifts that are happening today, whether it's work from home or more children being schooled at home, a lot of Zoom classes taking place at home. How has that affected the desire for for employees to want those flexible work schedules to be able to change with a fellow employee, whether that has to do with attending to their kids at home or perhaps being sick actually,
Yeah, I mean, that's huge. We see that, can only speak for myself. You might hear some background noise there from the homeschooling going on right now. And if you're a retailer, obviously you don't have the luxury of sitting working from home. You have to be in the store and take care of the customers. So having a flexible schedule so you can get your life balance to work with school, with children activities, with other things like hobbies and things like that's more important than ever. And to be able to offer technology that lets the employees have a more flexible schedule, but of course at the same time have the business running with the right person at the right time, that really has changed a lot. And connected to that, we see three trends for the deskless workforce and the retailer workers. And number one is just what we spoke about, the need for greater flexibility and their own power of their own schedule. So they don't miss birthdays, they don't miss their schools, their homeschooling and all these things. And like SquareBob or SpongeBob SquarePants, things are definitely changing. It's not like you do the schedule and then it's done. It's especially, retail, it's so many changes going on with shifting needs in the store due to weather or other things. It can be different needs for employees as well. And we see that inflexible schedules is one of the main reasons why a retailer would quit their job. And 41% say that system restrictions prevented them from swapping shifts with a coworker. So that's, of course, a high number that we think that a retailer should really think about. The second thing, which is almost a bit scary, or it is a bit scary the way it is right now, is like being sick as a retailer. For some people, it's not an option. They go to work even though they're sick, like Leslie Knope here from the great TV series Park and Recreation. But you see that before COVID happened, 76% of the deskless workforce went to work even when they were sick. And that's of course because they don't have a health insurance, they don't get paid when they're homesick, and then with COVID the number got much better, but still with all the risk and everything going on, 14% still went to work while they were feeling a bit sick. And that's also of course connected to that they can't afford to stay home basically, and this is a problem for everybody. And one way to solve this as well is having the possibility to swap shifts. So being able to, I don't feel well today, I can ask Steven, can you take my shift tomorrow and I can work for you on Saturday when I'm back healthy. And just that is making it more safe for the customer, making it better for the employee, and creating a win-win situation for both the business and the employee. And the third trend that we see, that's the gap between commitment and appreciation. So we see that, for the worker, of course you when you come to work, you want it to look like this, that, you get, appreciation for what you do, and that you get good feedback. And today the technology, sometimes the manager doesn't even meet the retail worker in the store. And many workers don't feel that they're appreciated, and dissatisfaction, unhappiness, that's really also is another thing that motivates workers to quit. And we, with our report that we just presented, we see that 64% have considered quitting the job because they're unhappy with their work environment. And on the other hand, if you see it from a more positive angle, we know that a happy workforce and an engaged worker is 40% more productive. So we see the trend that, really starting focusing more on the employees' well-being and having engaged employees as well.
Yeah, Andreas, that's interesting. And just want to pause here because I think you just raised some great points. And also I encourage everyone who's listening in to drop some questions in the Q&A function. We want this to be interactive. But we had a question come in here that I felt was extremely relevant. So based on the data points that you shared earlier, employees prefer flexible shifts in scheduling, being able to swap with fellow employees when it makes sense. But often they don't have the tools, or the retailer isn't providing them the technology to do so, or aren't empowering them to do so. But there's also a fear of being fired due to similar reasons, not showing up for your job. So what should a retailer be looking to do to simplify this problem where it's kind of a win-win on both sides?
Yeah, no, so we believe in that transparency is really important. So being able to forecast a schedule so that you can present it for the worker earlier. So you know yourself, you want to know what's coming up this week and maybe the week after, so you can plan your life. So if you can present your schedule 2 weeks in advance at least, and then also have the technology so you can go in on your app where you have pretty much your life right now, and there you can see if you have something coming up, like you need to take care of the kids to do homeschooling, for example, one day, see that you can swap a shift with another person. Or also you might have the weekend off and you want to make some extra money and see, okay, there's an extra shift on Saturday. Steven don't want to work on Saturday because he has other plans. Why can't I pick that shift up? Or even just as an employer, you can send out like, these are the open shifts we have these next 2-3 weeks, and have the employees go in and bid for these shifts themselves. So there's different technologies that make life a lot easier than having to, for a store manager, for example, to dial around and try to get the people to come in, or try to solve this in a manual way. It's a really strong return on investment to have this technology.
That's interesting. And do you think the same rules apply? This is related to another question that came in for a smaller business that might not be the size of a big box.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the cool thing with software as a service and web-based solutions. Like even small companies and small stores, even if you have 3 to 5 people in the store, that's even more important. And if you only have one store as well, if you're used to doing this with paper and pen or Excel spreadsheets and doing this manual, you still get the value of a solution like this as well. So it's really giving the power of an enterprise solution to the smaller retailers as well.
No, that's a fair point. And so looking at this next section, we discuss how retail workforce automation and management can better help retailers succeed in this new retail world. And I'm really interested to hear what you have to say here, because one of the focuses I think we've seen across the board is cost cutting from a lot of these retailers. And sometimes that has to do with, layoffs, anything that can help mitigate the impact on their bottom line and profitability. So in this new environment, as stores begin to open, I think a lot of employees are being asked to do different things and fulfill different roles, but at the same time, there might not be as many employees out there to serve customers. So love to hear your thoughts on how this automation tool can better prepare retailers in this new retail world we're entering in. Yeah,
no, great question. And what we see is investing in a workforce management solution, it's not all about cutting costs. It's also increase sales and increase, customer service and customer loyalty. And that is increasingly important with, online deliveries and pickups in stores and things like that. So the main goal with the workforce management solution is having the right person with the right skill at the right time in the store. And with this new retail world that we are living in, as we talked about in the beginning of this presentation and interview, it's really changing now. So before, when you had more people in the store, you had to make sure that you had the right amount of people when people walk into the door. Now you also need to think about other things where it's more, maybe packing things that you have on the shelf or doing things, back office, if you have a back office with clothes or shoes back there to prepare for online shopping. So I think what you need to do as a retailer is really, connect both the workforce management and the task management together. So, and look over your labor standards, because the old truth is old. You need to look at the new ways of working. So how much time do we spend serving customers, which is still, I think, even more important now when you don't have as many people walking through the door. And you also need to think about the other things that you need to do to keep a store open, like cleaning, which is also increasing with the amount of cleaning you need to do if you have the store, people doing that themselves. And also other things like online orders and things like that. So it doesn't have to be a mega big project, but it's just looking at these things and do the tweaks and changes to ensure that your store is ready for the new reality. And what we see, this was important, of course, already before COVID, but now post-pandemic, this will be regraded as critical to have the solution to do this.
And just on this point, could you point to maybe 3 tasks that you think, a store op manager would, best leverage this tool with their employees?
Yeah, so definitely. So, I mean, one thing is the compliance and the checklist to open a store, for example, that has changed during COVID. You need to be making sure that the store is clean, that, you have processes for making the store safe for employees to come in. So I think that's number one. And then number two, that's also to schedule the employees with tasks during the day, so that they can do things during the day and they can check things off, so that they're making sure that these things are done. And then number three, I think, is also information, so to be able to communicate new procedures and new rules, because we have a lot of customers that has come to us during COVID, or companies that didn't have a system, that's saying that we don't have any way of reaching out to our end employee. We have a new procedure where we need to put a sticker to close the shopping bag, for example, so it doesn't get infected or similar on the way out, and we don't have a way to communicate this with our workers. So I think those 3 things, like the checklist, the ability to schedule employees, and then also the communication is 3 really important and critical things that you need to solve now. And that is connected to the standard operating procedure, that we talked about, focusing on hygiene, safety, and also sales performance, of course. So having precise execution and measurement will be key. So if you have a couple of stores or many stores, you want to make sure that everybody is following these rules. And if you have to email and call and making sure that that's done manually, that's going to take up all your time, and you're not going to have time to run the business and focus on other things that you need to do to run a successful retail store. And the third thing, which is a bit scary, but also something, of course, we need to talk about, is considering another lockdown. So we see different states, going, a bit back in the amount of, people that are infected, and you also see in the UK, they went from having groups of 50 people down to groups of 6 people meeting outside now. So as a retailer, we really strongly think that you need to rethink now and do something now so you have a way to stay in touch and informed and be ready to perform, both when it might go down into lockdown again, so you're prepared for the next time, and also that you're prepared to get going when things will open up, because we really believe that that's where we're going long term. The challenge now is not knowing exactly when. So take this time, and we have also many companies that come to us and say, now is actually a good time to think about this because it is a bit slower in the store. So let's focus on putting a great solution in place now so that we can be ready for the next phase.
Yeah, I think that to that point, I think the time to innovate is now. We're seeing that in the environment with partnerships, a lot of acquisition. The acquisition space is extremely hot right now. So I think a lot of retailers are looking outward and trying to better prepare to enable that next level of growth as things begin to revert back to relatively normal, but we still need to be prepared if things revert back. So these types of technology tools can help these companies better prepare. And of course, labor cost optimization is increasingly important in this environment. When I mentioned before, cutting costs, optimizing profitability, but at the same time, you raised a great point that it's not just a cost saver. It's a revenue driver as well. But just to ask a quick question here before we move on, how could this type of tool help retailers solve the problem with understaffing and overstaffing? Yeah,
no, great question. And I have one very simple picture and then one more advanced picture to explain for the audience how this works. So the simple picture looks like this. So usually in a store, you have your employees, they come in the morning, then they go for lunch during day, and then some people go home a bit earlier to spend time with the family. But the challenge is that in many retailers, this doesn't align with when the customers are in the store. So the customers, it might be a little bit slower in the morning, it picks up a bit during lunch, it goes down again in the afternoon, and then in the evening, when the people are off work, then they have time to go to the store. So it's really about aligning these lines and also making sure that you can do productive things when you don't have customers in the stores. So you're ready to take care of the customer when they're really in the store. So this tries to illustrate that. And to take it one level deeper, how workforce management automation can help is also looking at forecasts. So connect the historical demands, which is a challenge now because things are changing so much with closed stores or, obviously the COVID impact and things like that. And you might also have things like that drives, schedules as well, like weather. It could be one thing, it could be sports events that are starting to open up again now and at least letting some people into the stadiums and things like that. So having track of that and doing a good forecast, that's a foundation to then build a good demand forecast. So with the forecast, see how much, how many people do you need in the store if you think it's going to be 10 people walking into the store 1 hour compared to 100 people the next hour. So taking that forecast and from that, with the labor standards you have and the budgets and shift constraints, create an optimal schedule. So like this is the optimal schedule to meet the demand that we're going to have in the store. And then connected to that is also assigning these schedules to the right employees with the right skills. You want to have the good salespeople in on the peaks. And you also have these labor laws with predictive scheduling and other scheduling policies that comes from in different states, where California and Oregon is one of the trickier ones, but it's impossible to solve that in your head and with Excel or pen and paper. So making sure that you follow the rules and legislations, as well as we talked about before, also taking into consideration the employee skills and their preferences. And then when you're in the store, do the task execution that we talked about. So making sure that that the right things are being done and the procedures are being followed, and also that the information gets out to the employee, and also the time reporting piece to continue back. So did they work today? Were they sick today? Being able to follow up so you can track, if somebody has got infected, and also of course follow the labor laws when it comes to time and attendance policies. And if you have this system, you can automate the schedule, you get the time, you can approve the time, and then it's sent on to payroll and HR. And then the important reports and the communication engagement goes through this process. So this is a little bit deeper into how a workforce automation solution looks like, and happy to talk more about this if there's time.
Thank you, Andreas. I think we have a few questions coming in from the audience here. Encourage everyone to continue to ask. We have a question here that talks about, what are some of the difficulties you've seen moving physical store labor costs to be shared with, digital assets that are tech enabled. So can you just talk a bit about that?
Yeah, so it's a great question. It all comes down to what we call the demand drivers. So before, it was only either people in the store, for example, or it was sales, like physical sales in the store. Now, when you also have e-commerce, you need to take care of both the people that are in the store and also the online demand. So you can say you have two drivers instead of one. So then forecasting those drivers, so when are, in the new normal, and with COVID, how many people are going to come into the store now? And that's much better if it's data driven than if it's just a hunch and a feeling. And the same thing with online orders that we see is growing and has accelerated even more during COVID, to make sure that, okay, so this day we think we're going to have this many people coming into the store at this time, and also we're going to have these online orders coming in, and then combining those two drivers, and with that creating the forecast. So that becomes a bit trickier now, but it's also then, if you don't have a solution for it, it's impossible to have it in your head and try to get it down in the schedule. So I think that's the main thing. And you can think about it just connected to hospitality, which is another sector we're working in, where you have now people are not going into the restaurant so much more. So the drive-in is increasing, and also the online orders through Grubhub or Uber Eats and things like that. So it's not only retail that has this challenge, it's also the hospitality business, where we also can help and see a lot of similarities between the two.
And we talk about, historical demand drivers to help retailers better predict their staffing. How do you look at something like this, where there isn't much historical data to pull from? If you're a retailer reopening, is it just learning step by step along the way and trying to best predict how much staff is the optimal level at first? How can you look at some of these data points where there really isn't much you can look at, as this is an unprecedented time for everyone? Yeah,
no, good question. And it is tougher now, because if you take one of our bigger customers, they worked at sales last year and the 6 weeks average. That was their way of kind of forecasting. And it was quite accurate, actually. It's really interesting to see how, today, this Tuesday was pretty much similar to Tuesday last year. But now, with, as you mentioned, the big changes, you really need to look at this closer and take new technology, help of new technologies. So that's why we now have AI and machine learning, that, with the data that comes in, we have algorithms that learn from, these recent events, so that you can use that data to predict the future, not the data from a year ago, but, you have other aspects looking at maybe the last week or 2 weeks back, and trying and have the computer learning from then, analyzing, okay, this is what we predicted, this was the reality, then let's use this algorithm to create the next. So it's really cool, but also really needed technology in the retail space that we see a lot of interest from, and we see a lot of great results when you become more data driven with the help of AI and machine learning.
No, that's really interesting. And so we're actually approaching our end of time for today, but I wanted to ask you one last question. So just if you can give us any insights or tidbits about the holiday, what we should expect from a staffing point of view, and just what you're seeing so far as you help retailers prepare their stores.
Yeah, I think it's important to think on the customers, of course, but also on the employees. So don't forget the employees, that you need to have engaged working in the store when the holiday season is coming up. And also, like we talked about just now, also forecasting the amount of people that will come to the store, making them feel safe, but also forecasting on the online sales and how much that will be. So you at least pay attention to those two drivers that we talk about, because that can be the difference between a great holiday sales, which we still hope and think it will be, and where you spend the money maybe completely wrong on having too much people or too little people in the store when the customers are actually there to buy. So I think number one is think about both the employees and the customers.
Great. Yeah. Thank you, Andreas. And thank you everyone for joining us. Special thank you to Quinyx and Andreas for speaking today and joining us for this webinar. I'd like to invite everyone here to join us tomorrow. We'll be doing a 11 a.m. webinar on the resilience of the supply chain and adapting for automation in a digitized world with our special guest Infor. But once again, Andreas, thank you for joining us today, and looking forward to seeing what's coming up next in workforce automation and the holiday season.
Great, thank you so much, Stephen. It was a pleasure to join you.